Alright, MMA fans, are you ready for the most unpopular opinion you have heard today and probably in one of the most recent MMA videos that you've watched? I like One Championship significantly more than I like the UFC, and I'm going to tell you why I like One Championship in this video, and I'd love to hear what you guys think down below afterwards. Before we talk about one, though, I do want to say hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with many YouTube channels. Let's talk about One Championship. So like I said, I have recently... I think it's been just over a year now, I have become a diehard fan of One Championship. If you guys haven't followed the channel, I know I'm a relatively small channel and there's only like a select number of you who have been watching most of my uploads, which I really appreciate you guys being here. I am a big MMA fan. Regularly, I watch LFA, I watch Bellator, I watch UFC, and now I watch One Championship. My entire life and even journey, like having my journey into martial arts and spectating the sport, I have been a diehard UFC fan. I watch the prelims. I sit for the entire card, the early prelims, no matter how strong, no matter how weak the card is. I am here sitting down watching MMA. So I've been watching the UFC for well over a decade at this point. And I gotta say, since I became a huge fan of One Championship, I like it significantly better. And that's not to say that I hate the UFC at all. I love the UFC. The channel is still based around the UFC. Obviously, I can talk about UFC all day. I would love for this channel to go big enough one day where I can just go live and just talk about MMA like these creators do. That's like a dream for me. So I love the UFC. I love the other organizations. I love just, to be honest with you, I love MMA in general. But why do I love One Championship more? First off, something that I didn't think I would enjoy nearly as much until I started spectating it is I love seeing all of the different arts. And with all of these different arts and all these different divisions, you have nice, recent, and oftentimes title fights. You get to see these fighters, you get to see all these championships, you get to see all these giant big matchups. I absolutely love watching one fight where it's like, okay, we're going to watch Muay Thai right now. Oh, now we're watching grappling, now we're watching MMA. Initially, I was like, before I started watching it, and I was thinking, okay, One Championship, yeah, you know what, it does have different martial arts that you can watch, but why not just watch MMA, something with all of them? But I can't describe it, man. It's just something exciting about switching it up every fight. Just seeing an MMA fight, then seeing a Muay Thai fight, then seeing a grappling fight, then seeing a kickboxing fight. I love it. I love it, and I don't know really why. Maybe it's just different. And these fights are significantly better than most of the fights the UFC puts on. One thing is, of course, people have been talking about in the MMA community for a little while now is One Championship allows needs to grounded opponents, stuff like that. So there are rules that the UFC could really implement. If you want to get into the weight cutting, the fights are often fair because they do have hydration testing and they cancel the fight if somebody misses weight, right? So oftentimes you'll see these guys come in and there's not a significant size advantage in One Championship. So I find the fights to be more fair, and it comes down to skill, it comes down to grit, it comes down to heart, and nobody is cheating in that sense in One Championship. But there are so many times where I'm watching these athletes in One Championship and I'm thinking, like, what if this guy took on the lightweight champion in the UFC or whatever division you're talking about, right? What if one of these guys came in like Mighty Mouse did and had a Muay Thai fight and an MMA fight with guys in the UFC? I'm watching these guys in One Championship fight, and I'm watching their skill, I'm watching the damage they're taking and absorbing, and I'm like, these guys could really compete with the UFC fighters. I wholeheartedly believe that. You know how Chaudhary has been campaigning, not necessarily campaigning, but talking about how they have the best fighters and they would like to put on an event with the UFC. I believe that they would have a solid shot in winning. In the UFC, that would be a horrible idea for them, obviously because they're a bigger name, and why would they risk it, right? And that's a big risk. That is a big risk. This wouldn't be like Bellator and Ryzen where they would just steamroll. I would really put my money on some guys in One Championship to defeat the guys in the UFC, but I got a little bit off track. These fights that they get put on, the problem with the UFC is One Championship just minimizes that. As soon as there is no action in the fight, like they barely give to fighters time to clinch and hold each other up against the fence, where the UFC will allow that, and One Championship will be like, all right, guys, you got to work right now, right now, right now. And then there's always something going on in these fights, and I didn't realize that that was an issue in the UFC until I started watching One Championship, because no matter what, if these guys are sitting on the ground, if there's a takedown and somebody's holding and just like barely giving someone a shot, you'll see that in UFC a lot. You'll get a takedown, and then one fighter will be like, and just do this, just enough, one shot here and there. Maybe they'll put their body weight on them just like to give an illusion that they're really doing something, and the ref won't stand them up, and then you get a little bit of a boring fight. One Championship does not even give them the opportunity to do that. As soon as there is a lack in the action, they split apart, they go, okay, fight, let's go. And if you want to talk about specifically the fighters in One Championship, these guys really are from all over the world. And that is something the UFC and Bellator could really, really like. And of course, they are starting to get fighters over from the East a little bit more. But there's so many different types of people in one championship from so many different parts of the world coming with different strengths, different weaknesses, different styles. They truthfully bring people from everywhere. With the UFC, you'll have your like, okay, we have a couple stars from this place, a couple stars from that place. One championship is riddled with people from all over the world. And I honestly believe they have a better talent pool in that they take the best from different places. And honestly, if you want to talk about the women's divisions, what is a common criticism of the UFC? The women's division sucks. People don't like watching women's MMA because they're boring and they oftentimes don't have skill. You have just a select few fighters that are exciting in the women's divisions for MMA. One championship does not have that issue. They have the best female fighters and the best talent. No matter what, I rarely see a women's fight in one championship that is boring. Whether you want to talk about grappling, kickboxing, whatever, and they are good at building their stars. They got a lot of hype. They have these nice, wonderful personal stories, just like something significantly better than Countdown that the UFC puts on, to be honest with you. Something better than Embedded. Well, Embedded's pretty good, but still, I believe one championship really does all of this better. Got a little bit off topic from the women, though. These women fighters are so good, and it's not the problem that you have women's MMA. The UFC just doesn't invest nearly as much that one championship is doing into their fighters. And these fighters, you have stars like Stamp Fairtex. Watching these girls fight with amazing technique and amazing grit, heart, these girls are fighters. They are significantly better in all those divisions. And I believe that these people that they are getting for their divisions could outdo a lot of the divisions in the UFC. The UFC has bantamweight and lightweight that obviously stand out. And I'd find that very interesting to throw the one guys in there with them. That's going to be tough. But if you want to talk about other divisions, you want to talk about like welterweight, flyweight, you want to talk about light heavyweight, one championship would give them a run for their money, man. Whether it's male or female. Their one championship's female division would run through the UFC's division. I guarantee that. But one other thing I do want to talk about is the actual events that they put on. I understand that I'm a little bit in the unpopular side with this one, at least from the people in my circle and some people that I have talked to online and in comment sections and stuff like that. Something that I really like about Bellator is the way that those fighters walk out. I like the stage. I know it's like people go, okay, that's too much like WWE, but at the end of the day, it's still like a really cool thing. Like at the end of the day, WWE's fake and this isn't. What's the problem with having a stage and like not necessarily fireworks, but anything going on? There's a big screen, they introduce the fighters. So I've always liked that Bellator did that. One championship does the same thing. I don't know who started it first, but man, they do it well. And I love those walkouts compared to the UFC where the guys just come out from a hallway. The walkouts are great. I just spoke about Stamp Fairtex. Prime example of how great that is. You want to go back in the day? So many of these fighters have the opportunity to be like how the UFC used to be with like Jason Mayhem Miller comes to mind in Strikeforce. These guys coming out, hyping up the crowd. They have this incredible walkout. They can have a show. They have the opportunity to even be their own brand and sell themselves even more and get the crowd hyped up. They're ready for the fight. The events that they put on in general are just great. And honestly, I kind of like the way they do the championships. I just find the orange, like when the champion gets crowned and they fire the confetti up there. I think the entire, like, just event that they put on in general, the commentator's great, the announcer's great. Hard to beat Bruce Buffer, but still, everything they do is great. The entire event, I just legitimately enjoy more than I enjoy the UFC's. The fights are better. The fighters are better. The fighters are more relatable to these guys. And by them, of course, like when I said the fighters are better, of course, that's like a fighter by fighter basis. I mean, like, the fights are better in general. These guys clash. These people, when they win, they seem like they're more grateful to be in one championship instead of guys just in the UFC. You don't have like all this crazy trash talking. While I enjoy that in the UFC, sometimes it does get cringy. The legitimate beef is really cool to see, but one championship just does the events better. And I find myself not needing to watch the trash talk. I don't need all the fake stuff that the UFC puts on and trying to get all these brawls in the crowd and stuff like that. I find myself not needing that because I'm legitimately sitting back and I am enjoying one championship's events. I love the fighters. I have become a super fan of this, for real. In the entire time that I've been watching one championship so far, there has not been a single card where I sat back and went, well, that was disappointing. This fight kind of sucked. You know, like, of course they have their duds, but they are rare and far in between. The UFC, how many times does a card end and we go, well, that was crap? You know, all these fights that were boring, fights that didn't live up to the hype. I have never watched a one championship event and felt that way. Every single time I walk away going, oh my God, that was fantastic. This fight was great. This knockout was great. This guy was great. I'm a big fan of this guy now. They are building themselves to be something special, especially with their debut in the US. I don't believe one championship will ever take over the UFC. I believe they will always be the top dog. But I guarantee you, I enjoy one championship way more than I enjoy the UFC. And that's not to say this isn't a UFC hate video, okay? This isn't a Bellator hate video. LFA, like I said, I love all of these. I love the UFC. I love its fighters. I need you to understand this isn't a hate video at all. It's a one championship appreciation video. I hope this goes mainstream globally one day because this organization is something special. And I officially can say that I love one championship significantly more than I love the UFC, guys. I'd love to know what you think about one championship down below. Are you a fan of it? If so, do you like it more than the UFC? Why or why not? Or do you think the UFC is better? Of course, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. And thank you so much for watching this video on the screen right now. If you'd like to continue watching the Clenbat channel, on the screen right here, you will have 2 fantastic videos to check out. Check them out. They're pretty great, guys. I will see you there or in the next video. Take care.